Hello, everybody. Road Warriors 627 here, and welcome back to another Thoroughbred Racing preview here on my channel. Today, we're going to analyze my favorite race every year. It is the Belmont Stakes, the last leg of the Triple Crown. And this year, it kind of sucks, depending on how you look at it. We've only got 8 horses. I don't really have a problem with that. But the field is not very inspiring. It's a little bit accomplished, but I don't particularly like any of the horses that much. So, since I don't like any of them, that means I need to have some people who do like some of the horses join me. And I do have some pretty good guests today, starting with my usual partner in crime, Sammy Roseman.
I'm here again.
I've got Sketchy the Horse Guy, otherwise known as Nathan, who I just did a show with, the One Turn Route Show. Say hi.
Hello.
And the analyst extraordinaire, Jack Sargent from the Racing Rundown podcast. What's up, Jack?
Hello. One point that I will make before we start this is it is very refreshing to get back to a mile and a half of the Belmont. I think everyone can take joy in that.
There was no Belmont Stakes last year. Let's be clear. There was absolutely no Belmont Stakes. Didn't exist. Okay. Anyway, well, that's
Honestly,
completely true.
None of those Triple Crown races really felt, no pun intended here, authentic. I mean, the Derby was run in September, the Belmont Stakes was at the wrong distance, and the Preakness was in October. Let's just forget 2020.
It didn't happen. It didn't exist, and authentic didn't win. Right? Right? We're all good. Authentic didn't win. Okay. Let's move on. So we got a field of 8. Post time is 6:49 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You can watch the less than pleasing coverage on NBC. Race number 11 of 13 races on Saturday. We're going to have more previews out after today. We're going to have a Thursday preview coming out later today, which is Tuesday, June the 1st as well. We're going to have a Friday and a Saturday preview out tomorrow, Wednesday, June the 2nd. So 4 videos in total. This one and then one for each of the 3 days, which will be more informal. This one will be more formal, and we're going to run through the field, starting with number 1, Bourbonic. What do you think of Bourbonic, Sammy?
I feel like Bourbonic is just pace dependent. To be completely honest, I just think he needs a pace run through every single race. He got that in the Wood Memorial in a slow time. It is a weak field. The Derby, he picked up a little bit of ground late over tired horses. I think he's going to beat some horses in this race. I think he'll run. I want to be surprised if he runs on the money, but I don't know if he's good enough to do that.
If I interject, he kind of screams, kind of like a Patch type. A horse like, I guess Patch, if you remember back in 2017, he finished 3rd in the Belmont Stakes, a pretty credible performance, but then he never really did anything great after that. I wouldn't be surprised if he has that archetype. His pedigree doesn't scream mile and a half, but it does scream mile and a quarter, which is all right. Like, he doesn't scream going long, but I mean, if he closes in, as Sammy said, then I think he has a shot.
Jack?
I'll disagree with the pedigree point on that. He does have a lot of mile and a half up in the pedigree, but I'm going to invoke a term with Bourbonic that it is a term that we use very often on Racing Rundown, and a term that I really, really like to use. And Bourbonic is a Pletcher plotter, plain and simple. He is the prototypical type of horse like that for Todd Pletcher, is always going to be coming late, but isn't going to be coming very fast. And for that's one of the reasons why I don't like him. Now, I am going with another Pletcher horse in this race. I think all Pletcher horses, you can make a case in this race, are Pletcher plotters, but I have never really been fully impressed with Bourbonic. I don't think distance is going to be a problem with him. Sammy's right. He is going to beat horses. I wouldn't be shocked to see him finish in the top half of this field, even though I'm not using him in this race. I do think that he has a shot to at least make some kind of an impression, but I don't think he's very good. And the Wood Memorial itself is a very bad race since that was run, so there's not really much to take away positive from him.
To be fair, just when it comes to like the fast pace point, I mean, Sammy, actually, this kind of it's very delayed, but Sammy did say something about how he needs a pace to close into. He really doesn't. I mean, the Wood Memorial had no pace. It was the slowest Wood Memorial in history, and that's how he did it. That's how he won.
Yeah, but every horse did not show up in that race.
Well, it's a mixture of that and no pace, but like the idea that he needs a pace to win is
He needs a pace to win. he needs a pace to run into, or he just needs every horse in front of him to not show up?
He basically, the idea is that he needs everyone to just be walking. He just needs everyone else to be slow as he is in the stretch.
And of course, I'm going to disagree with all of you. I'm taking Bourbonic in this race, full disclosure. I finally settled on it. I was thinking about it for a long time. And it's very simple. I hate this field so much. I don't like anybody. I don't really like Bourbonic, but I want Pletcher in this race. I want a longer price. And we see it in Belmonts all the time. These horses that don't look good enough on paper, but they have the right running style. Now, let me stop there for a second. Running style. I don't mean that he's going to be close to the pace, because he's not. And I'd rather he would be close to the pace, because that's historically what does well in Belmonts. Though, as Jack has brought up before, you don't need to be close to the lead to win a Belmont. And I'm hoping Kendrick just has him a little closer than usual. I don't want to see him last. I want to see him kind of in that 5th or 6th spot, and obviously he's going to be on the rail. I'd be surprised if he gets out any time during the first 6 furlongs of this race. What I like about him is he has shown that he is not afraid to take dirt and that he can run through it, because he is going to have to take some dirt and kick back in this race, and I'm not really too worried about it. I also agree with Jack that the pedigree is very good for a mile and a half. You're talking about Bernardini, who's by AP-Indy. We all know what AP-Indy did. The Dam is Dancing a Fleet by a Fleet Alex, and we all know what a Fleet Alex did. I have no concerns at all. The speed figures, yeah, they're a little slow, but historically in the Belmont Stakes, I hate to say it, the speed figures haven't mattered that much. And I'm a guy who uses speed figures a lot, though not as much as I used to. So I do think that this is your chance to make money in here with Bourbonic. I'm going to play him across the board. I'm going to use him in doubles. I'm going to use a lot of horses in doubles actually in here because I just hate everybody. But as far as a value choice to put on top, he's it. I'm taking him.
Would you say he at least somewhat resembles Sir Winston in the idea that even though he doesn't look like he has enough talent on paper, he still has the ability to win?
Well, Sir Winston, this kind of goes against what I just said. Sir Winston was the only horse in last year's Belmont Stakes to have a triple-digit buyer figure coming into the race. 2 years ago. Well, the last real Belmont Stakes that was run. He got 100 in Peter Pan. But kind of similar to the Wood Memorial, he closed into his last race. This is the Wood Memorial 2 races ago for Bourbonic, but the last race for Sir Winston was the Peter Pan. And while he didn't win, he made this ginormous move into a race that did not have a lot of pace to come and get second. So that is a little bit similar. I'd say Sir Winston probably had a little bit more upside coming into the race, but come on, it's Pletcher. He's working out well. I need a price in here because I hate everybody. That's all it is.
I will say to the Sir Winston point, Sir Winston was a plotter and Bourbonic is a plotter. So if he could run the Sir Winston race and win.
Right, and he was on the inside too. And then he got out at the top of the stretch with the Rosario move.
Yeah, actually, besides, I think, Rags to Riches, Todd Pletcher seems to have almost all of his Belmont winners be plotters. Is that correct?
His 2 other Belmont winners are plotters. Yep.
So was Commissioner. So was Commissioner.
Yep.
Who
Commissioner
lost by a nose. So was Destin, who lost by a nose.
So this is the perfect archetype that Todd Pletcher always brings that seems to do good.
That's right, and that's my only reason. All right, let's move on to the favorite, number 2, Essential Quality, who to me should be the favorite, and he is the most likely winner of this race. Sammy, what do you think about Essential Quality, who probably ran the best race in the Derby?
Listen, Essential Quality. I'm sorry, but I can never take this horse below 3-1 unless he starts winning like a machine again. Listen, he had every right to go by Medina Spirit, Mandaloon, and Hot Rod Charlie. He had a perfect trip in the lane. He was on the outside of them, had every right to go by them, and didn't. And now he's gonna be 2-1 in this race when you have other options. I mean, I have him second because you can't not. Essential Quality is a horse you cannot leave out of your top 4 in my opinion in any race. It would be a mistake. I'm gonna have him second in this race. I just feel like there's better options. He might win this race, but like there's better options at better prices, in my opinion. That's how I look at it.
I think
And
for
oh wait, no, you can go first, Nathan.
one thing I'd also like to kind of bring up as a small little mention is that even though he is a Tappet cult, his dam side is more sprinter related, which I think is something to keep in mind. Like even though Tappet is great for the Belmont Stakes, I feel like that might throw a little fork in things. It's a small fork.
Well, I'm going to pick up with my analysis of essential quality, and unfortunately for me, and it's weird to say this, unfortunately, about a 2-year-old champion, but I didn't want to pick essential quality, but I'm taking the exact opposite position that Sammy had. I don't think that there's a better horse in this Belmont than essential quality. If there was, I would go with the horse, but I haven't picked a favorite in a Triple Crown race since the Kentucky Derby last year. I'm going to change that this time. Essential quality just runs to his usual form in every single race. The Kentucky Derby was the first loss of his career, and it wasn't a bad race. Yeah, he's not this invincible horse that we may have thought he was after the Southwest Stakes, but he's still a really good horse. Pedigree absolutely screams Belmont. Tappet, in all the Belmonts that have been 1.5 miles, Tappet has had a horse finish in the top 3, I believe, every year since 2013. I could be mistaken on what the exact year is, but Tappet horses do run very well in the Belmont. That's not the reason why I'm taking him. I'm taking him because he runs a good race every single time. And he's a horse that showed in the Bluegrass that when there's a relatively paceless race, which that's what the Bluegrass was, he can sit close and be fine. And as Andrew says, horses that are closer to the front tend to do better in the Belmont than horses that are coming from really far out. So he's going to be my pick in this race, although I am very lukewarm on him.
I have no objections against that. I just wanted to try and find a price to beat him. Otherwise, I totally agree with everything you said. He's going to be my second choice. Number 3 is the Preakness winner, and let's give a little congratulations to Jack for picking the Preakness winner, Rombauer. Congratulations. Excellent call. What do you think of him this time?
Well, it is going to pain me to say this, but I think that Rombauer is probably the horse in this race that has the least chance to get the 1.5 mile distance. The Preakness was something that suited him very well in terms of he got the exact trip that I was hoping that he would get for him to be able to win the race. And, Rombauer was a horse that was, I can understand why people underrated him, but in hindsight, he was being underrated by the general public. His races on paper, once you dove into the charts, looked very good. But we're not talking about why he won the Preakness. We're talking about can he win the Belmont, and I don't think so. He's got a very turf pedigree, and I'm not using that as a knock for him, but the pedigree is also something that 1.25 miles would probably be the peak for Rombauer. And, he's going to sit the trip that you would probably want him to be able to set in order to win the race. But I don't think that that's going to be something that he can do because I don't think he can get the distance. He's also going to be way too well bet in this race for me to consider him. So even though I did pick him in the Preakness, even though I am going to be a Rombauer fan forever, I have to go against him in the Belmont. It is very painful to do that, though.
Sammy?
I don't like Rombauer either. The first thing that I didn't like was that Flavien Prat chose to ride a different horse instead of this horse. Even though that horse ran 3rd in the Derby, you would think if he thought the Preakness winner was better, he would ride the horse in the Belmont. And like what Jack said, the distance is going to be a problem, and I agree with him on that. I think the distance will be a problem in this race. It'll be interesting to see how he runs, but at 3-1, or he may even be bet below 3-1. I could see him at 5-2.
The Triple Crown bandwagon really does not work for him.
Yeah, he'll be. I don't think he'll be over 7-2 in this race, and I can't take this horse at 7-2. I just can't. I think there's better options in this race, in my opinion.
If I have to strike another 2019-2021 comparison, we talked about Sir Winston versus Bourbonic. How about War of Will versus Rombauer? Preakness winners that had turf pedigree to go with it. And War of Will ran like crap in the Belmont. I don't remember if it was because of outside influences, because I didn't meticulously look at that part. But the idea of a Preakness winner with turf pedigree coming back and being bet down a bit too much, and then Probably not running too good in the Preakness Stakes. You kind of see it.
I actually totally agree with you, and that's what I was gonna say. I think this horse screams high. I'm War of Will 2 years later. I guess he should be respected because he won the Preakness, but I don't like him at all in here. I honestly thought that Preakness field was even worse than the field we have for this race, which I'm already not in love with. He's going to take a ton of money in here. I'm thinking about throwing out 3 horses in this race, and he's one of them. The one thing that he gets is Red Hot Johnny V, and I know that Pratt took off of him to ride another horse who I'm also going to throw out in this race. Johnny, I don't know what he saw, but he's been picking live mounts, him and his agent. I think he still has Ron Anderson now. So maybe he sees something here that I don't. But again, with the distance, like Jack said, I don't think the pedigree is there. And to me, this is just another War of Will who got the nice setup to win the Preakness. I wonder if he maybe comes back in the Belmont Derby in 5 weeks. Excuse me, I was going to say 4. That would be interesting.
Yeah,
Better.
I will say about Rombauer. Rombauer is a very nice horse. I just don't think that I think more highly of Rombauer than I think a lot of other people do in the country. Obviously some of that is because I picked him, but I also think that Rombauer is just a horse that was underrated beforehand, and I think once people start to look at him more, you're going to see that there's a lot of upside with him. But that will come later on down the road. I hope that the connections decide to stick him back on the turf because he can definitely do some damage there. But in terms of this race, I do not see it.
Okay, number 4 is Doug O'Neill's Hot Rod Charlie, who Flavian Pratt does jump on to ride here after he rode him back in the Derby. He comes back to him. This is another horse I said I'm going to throw out. Sammy, do you like this horse at all?
I do a little bit. I think Hot Rod Charlie can run well in this race. Flavian Pratt. I think this horse will get the distance in this race too, in my opinion. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, because Oxbow was second in the Belmont Stakes. Yes, he was well beaten behind Palace Malice, but even so, just like Hot Rod Charlie, both of them at Oxbow's biggest win, the Preakness, 1 3/16. Hot Rod Charlie's biggest win, the Louisiana Derby at 1 3/16. I think that coincidentally, they'll both be able to handle the 1.5 as well. Maybe Hot Rod Charlie will get second, but I want him to win. I think he's my win choice because maybe, just maybe, he'll have less money on him than Essential Quality, but I can't be sure.
He will. The thing is, think about this. Take away his 2-year-old season, all right? And you just look at the Louisiana Derby and the Toyota Bluegrass for Essential Quality. You look at the Derby. If you didn't know anything other, who do you think would be the favorite in the race? One horse ran 3rd, other ran 4th.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do get your point. Hot Rod Charlie did beat Essential Quality.
He did, and Essential. I mean, it doesn't mean the most because it was a short margin, but
still a victory.
Hot Rod, yeah, and it was still, yeah, technically. And the thing with him is, beside Rock Your World and Hot Rod Charlie would probably be like 2 lengths behind him. I don't see him.
He's not going to be that far back. We can get into this now. The thing about the Derby that's been happening a lot recently and very frustrating for a lot of fans, especially people like me, is horses have just been able to walk in the front end of the Kentucky Derby. That doesn't happen in the Belmont. Now, that doesn't mean that Flavian Pratt is going to send Hot Rod Charlie up there, try to duel Rock Your World into submission, but there is no situation where Hot Rod Charlie is going to sit 2 lengths off of Rock Your World. I will say this, I vehemently disagree with that point. He's going to be close. They're not going to get into a pace duel, but the notion that Hot Rod Charlie is going to sit back there and let Rock Your World do his own thing on the front end is not happening. Jockeys don't do that in the Belmont Stakes, and I'm referring to 1.5 mile Belmont Stakes, not the one from last year.
The horses maybe more like a length, but the thing is,
he's not. Hot Rod Charlie is not going to let.
Charlie is going to be on the lead with Rock.
He's not going to be on the lead, but Hot Rod Charlie.
Did you not listen to what I said? What I said was he's not going to go up there and try to sprint with Rock Your World early, but he's not going to let Flavian Pratt is not going to let Rock Your World get away on the front end. That doesn't mean that he's going to go up there and try to rabbit him, but Hot Rod Charlie has tactical speed, and he doesn't have to use it, but this is a situation where he is probably going to be better off using that. Didn't have to use it in the Kentucky Derby because there were other horses that wanted to be closer to the lead in that race. He was closer to the pace in the Louisiana Derby because
Didn't he lead it? Didn't he lead the Louisiana
he
Derby?
led
Yeah,
he
there
led
was
the
no
way
other
for
speed in that
most
race.
he led the way for most of the race because there was no pace there, and he needed to be relatively close to the lead. So if this was the Derby, I would agree with you. But this is not the Derby. This is the Belmont. Jockeys don't let horses walk. If they do it, then if they do, it's a mistake. Then I'm wrong. But I don't think it's going to happen. Now, for my opinions on Hot Rod Charlie, I think that I'm going to agree with all of you that Hot Rod Charlie has a chance to win this race, but it's not for any of the reasons that you guys mentioned. I don't think that Oxbow is the best comp because Oxbow didn't really get the mile and a half. He was second, but he was a very tiring second. But this horse on his own has been very good since he broke his maiden. And Doug O'Neill horses, more often than not, tend to do this. They try for a little bit. They can't get it together. But when they break their maiden, they finally get it together. When Doug has good horses, that's the formula they follow. It takes him a while to get, and that's what Hot Rod Charlie did. It took him a while to get to this point, but he won his maiden race, big second in the Breeders' Cup, and then you saw what he did in his 3-year-old season. I like the fact that he has tactical speed, but the big thing for me is he's also a fighter. So he's going to be relatively forwardly placed, and I think he's going to finish in the top 3 because I don't think he's going to fade. He may get tired late. Horses may pass him. I don't think he's going to win the race, but I think he's going to run a very strong effort, and I think he will be relatively close to the pace.
I don't like this horse, as I've told you already, so this is kind of where we separate in our opinions in here, because I agree with a lot of other things you guys have said so far. To me, the warning flag is the 7-2, and I feel, this is my personal opinion, I feel like that is very accurate for what he's going to be come post time. Because I think people are going to see that he beat Essential Quality in the Kentucky Derby, and they're not going to talk anything about the ground loss that Essential Quality had. And I know, Sammy, that you said Essential Quality had every chance to get by. I mean, he did. But he also would have had to do it while covering a lot more ground. We all looked at the trackers differentials from the Kentucky Derby, and it wasn't close. I need to throw this horse out if I'm going to make any money. Because to me, Hot Rod Charlie is a horse that I needs a literal perfect trip to win this race. Either just tucked straight in behind the lead, and he needs the 7 horse, the other West Coast horse, Rock Your World, to fade, which I don't think is going to happen. I like the 7 a lot more than the 4 in here of the 2 West Coast horses. Also, 2 things stick out to me with the jockey and the trainer, and I know sometimes you guys don't care as much about this stuff, but it matters to me because I'm a big jockey-trainer combination guy. Flavien Prat, do you have any qualms with him at all about riding this racetrack and moving too early? Because I do.
Nothing necessarily strikes out to me, but I don't think that those reservations are impossible. I don't know how many times he's ridden a mile and a half before, so someone has that statistic to me and for me and wants to leave it in the comment. I'll keep an eye out for that. But I don't know how many times, if ever, Flavien Prat has ridden a mile and a half, but I can tell you it's probably not very often. So I would say that point is not unfounded.
And also Doug O'Neill. Obviously, this horse won the Louisiana Derby under almost perfect circumstances earlier this year. Can we take a look at that 6% from his last 222 starters in graded stakes? To me, that's significant. Only 30% in the money. I care about trainer stats, and to me, that's a red flag. To me, this is a horse that absolutely needs a 100% perfect trip to win. And at 7-2, I'm not putting my money down. He's one of the 3 I'm going to just totally forget about in here. I'll tell you what, though. The only way, to me, that he has a shot is if Prat says, screw you, Joel Rosario, and he goes. Because he's inside of the 7. That's why the 7 has the advantage in here, to me, of the 2 West Coast horses, because he's drawn outside of Hot Rod Charlie. Does Flavian Pratt totally screw up the dynamics of this race by sending the 4? That would be interesting to me, and then I think it might help set it up for somebody coming from behind. Okay, let's move on to number 5. That is the true wild card in this race, Francisco de Ina. Sammy, what do you think?
No.
Sammy, what do you think about this horse, if you think anything at all?
I think he'll run well. Yep. I don't think he'll be like the top 5, but I don't think he'll run last. Or maybe he will. But like, I think he's bred for the distance. Who rides him? Ricardo, right?
Santana.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's good enough, but I don't know if I think he could run like 6 or 7, but not he's not gonna win this race. If he wins this race, I'll be more than stunned.
For me, he's just too much of a wild card. There's no real upside that I see for him. I don't really know that he does get the distance. I don't know how. I don't have the stats in front of me, so I wouldn't be able to do this. But I don't know that Will Take Charge was a horse that or is a horse that can produce horses that run well at 1.5 miles, and he did not run that distance in his career himself. So I don't really like Francisco de Ina in here at all. I think that he's too much of a wild card for me. But, if you want to just he's a kooky horse, so his own kookiness could give him the win, or maybe not the win, but could give him a good run, depending on if he wants to move early like he did in the Preakness, then maybe that could set him up in a position where he could run in the money. I could see you making a case for him to finish in the money, and the odds are going to be there on him. So he may be a horse that you might just want to throw a ha-ha's $2 show bet and maybe cash in something at the bottom of that, but aside from that, I don't think he's a use in here.
I mean, he was up close to the lead in the Preakness, and he just totally fell apart. Now, of course, we always have to wonder, were they using that race as a prep for this one? Now, to me, it's highly unlikely that somebody is going to use the Preakness as a prep for the Belmont. It's just weird. It doesn't happen. You want to try and win that race. And honestly, I completely agree with the distance. I don't know if I love him going this 1.5 miles. I realize that it's a Curlin dam, and we all know how close Curlin was to winning this race and how good of a horse he was at a distance of ground anyway. But I just don't see anything, and I feel like these foreign horses often get overbet in the Belmont Stakes. Now, the one exception was Lonnie, of course. And historically, some foreign horses have done well. Whether you want to call Canadian foreign, that might increase your percentages there. I don't really consider it that way. This horse is actually bred in America, but raced over in Japan. But to me, that's still a foreign horse because of the foreign trainer.
No matter where he went, he seemed to suck.
I mean, Santana, I don't know if I trust him going 1.5 miles on this racetrack. I really want a local jockey. I really don't want Pratt or Santana in this race at all. And I don't pay attention to jockeys that much, but I certainly pay attention to them a little bit. And I'd like a hometown rider in this race, as I usually do.
I think even if you disregard, even if you just talk about the Japanese and Europeans, Gronkowski did pretty good, Lonnie did pretty good. Master Fencer, I actually remember picking him or wanting to, but he didn't do so great. So
he was coming there at the end. He was coming.
So yeah, I guess Japanese horses do have some sort of success, but I think there's a bit of a difference. Isn't Lonnie a Tappet horse?
Yeah, I know Destin was created. Were they all Tappet horses? All 3 of those that ran 1, 2, 3 in that race?
They were. I checked. Lonnie is by Tappet. So wow, it was just a Tappet fecta.
Yeah. Well, that was the 3 grays running 1, 2, 3, so they were all by Tappet. That's interesting. I knew they were all gray, but I wanted to check with the sires. Yeah, so we pretty much we all agree that we have no idea, and chances are it's not going to happen.
Another thing to keep in mind is that those foreign horses, they had pedigrees that, even though they weren't perfect, they definitely did have longer distance pedigree. Like, Gronkowski had Lonhro, who was definitely a longer distance horse. And Master Fencer had Just Away, who won the mile-and-a-half Dubai Shima Classic. I think. If it was the Dubai Turf, then I apologize. Either way, they definitely had longer distances in their blood than Will Take Charge, who does not come off to me as a longer distance sire whatsoever.
Well, and if you want to go back really far into history, the Belmont winner that came from Europe, Go and Go, in 1990, was also a horse that did have some good distance backup in his pedigree. So, I mean, you can grasp at straws and find foreign horses that ran good in the Belmont, but I think if you're using that to pick Francisco de Ina, you're grasping at straws to look at history, because I just don't see it there.
Yeah, I wasn't really saying that they did bad. I think they're just overbet a little bit. I think Master Fencer was overbet a little bit, and Epic Horus before he scratched was 4-1. So that was.
I just like that horse. I was like, wait, what year was that again? 16 or 17?
17.
2017. Yeah, no, I wasn't insinuating that you were doing. I just wanted to make
I know
that
you weren't.
point.
I know you weren't.
All right, number 6, right? Number 6 is Known Agenda, who actually was my original Derby pick before I flipped and made the right decision to go with the juiced up Medina Spirit. Anyways, Known Agenda is not going to be 6-1. I'll just put it plain and simple. If that horse is 6-1, I'll be shocked. That's all I see on Twitter. Known Agenda. He's going to do that. He's going to win. I just don't know. I feel like I don't think he needs a pace to run into. He seems to run into himself. If that makes sense. He always finds trouble he always kind of gets in trouble by himself. It's happened in the past before, but he does remind me of Vino Rosa, who ended up running 4th, and they actually both ran 9th in the Derby too.
Yeah, that's where all the play for. That's where all the play for Known Agenda is coming in. It is that I think people are trying to compare him too much to Vino Rosso. And not that that's a bad comparison, but Known Agenda is another horse that, to me, just seems like another Pletcher plotter. I wasn't overly impressed with the Florida Derby looking back on it. He did run into a ton of trouble in the Kentucky Derby, though. There were a lot of horses that had trouble. We'll get to the trouble in the Derby with the number 7 horse in this race. But Known Agenda did find some trouble for himself in the Kentucky Derby, as Sammy said. Now, I think that he can bounce back from that, but I think he's going to run like Vino Rosa ran in the Belmont.
Just kind of get a 4th place finish or something.
Yeah, I mean, Known Agenda is probably this. If you're looking to Pletcher, which I'm looking to Pletcher, I know Andrew's looking to Pletcher. I think most people are going to be looking to Pletcher. Known Agenda is probably your best horse, but for me, the price is going to go down way too much. I want no part of whatever he's going to end up being very short, around 4. 4-1 would be the highest I think he goes, and I think he's going to be even lower than that. So wow. I'm passing on Known Agenda for the final Pletcher horse in the race, which we'll get to in a couple minutes.
I don't think he'll be that low, but if he is, that would certainly help. That would help me. I'd be fine with that. Very similar to what I just heard. I did put him 4th in here just because I think he's going to be ready. I think he's the. I like Bourbonic a little more, but I don't think he's the worst of the Pletcher horses. Sorry, Jack. I really don't like the 8, as we'll get to. But he's got some figures that are okay, and it's Pletcher, and he had trouble in the Derby, and I didn't like that Florida Derby at all, to be honest with you. But it just feels like he's the kind of horse that's gonna sit outside somewhere in the middle of the pack and come down the stretch and maybe pass a few horses late. Yeah.
Also, I'm going to make a different comparison to another Pletcher horse that isn't Vino Rosso. Materiality. Coming in strong into the Florida Derby, didn't do so great in the Kentucky Derby, to my knowledge. And then when it came down to the Belmont,
he had a ton of trouble in the Kentucky Derby. Materiality.
And in the Belmont Stakes, he just piddled out. And I remember people saying that Materiality was going to be their Belmont horse that wasn't American Pharaoh.
The difference between Materiality and this horse is that Materiality had speed. And I'm very...
No agenda does that.
I mean, Johnny... Materiality just wasn't not ready for that race. Johnny asked him to go after American Pharaoh, and he just couldn't do it. And they weren't even going that fast. He just was totally not ready. It was one of the Pletcher horses that just did not show up for the Belmont Stakes for whatever reason.
Yeah, and you'd think he would, considering he was by a Fleet Alex directly, but it just never happened.
Yeah, to me, he's more of an anomaly. Number 7 is Rock Your World, the latter of the two West Coast horses. This time it's John Sadler, not Doug O'Neill. And here's a horse who really had trouble in the Kentucky Derby, specifically at the start.
I think he's my top pick in this race. I know Jack thinks I'm kind of crazy for picking him, but
I don't think you're crazy. I just think that some of the points you made are disputed. They're disputable. I think that Rock Your World has a good chance to win the Belmont. I personally don't like to depend on him being able to carry his speed a mile and a half, but he certainly has a chance to win this race, and I'm not 100% throwing him out, but I just don't think
he's a risky choice because like if he gets, I feel like if like some way or somehow like Flaming Apprentice takes back Hot Rod Charlie, or just even puts him back like a length, and Rock Your World just keeps going and nobody's close to him, I think he can actually win this race. The last race, in my book, Rock Your World is 3-for-3. That race doesn't even count because also we got a point is just pray. We all have to pray that Joel Rosario has irons in this time. Hopefully.
I mean, if you want to talk an absolutely horrendous trip in the Kentucky Derby, find me a horse in the last 5 years that had a worse trip than Rock Your World, or in the Kentucky Derby.
Even started, and it doesn't help when you get squeezed the whole trip too.
So yeah, I mean, for him, absolutely, this is going to be a bounce back effort. Whatever he runs in this race, assuming that some other absolute catastrophe doesn't happen. He's going to run better than he did in the Derby. I think he's going to be forwardly played. He's obviously the main speed for this race. I think Hot Rod Charlie will be close to him, as I've mentioned several times already. But Rock Your World is the horse that is going to be the main speed in here. He's shown an ability to carry speed, but that was at 1 1/8, and this is 1.5 miles. I don't think 1.5 miles is out of the question for him. You look at the pedigree. He's out of an Empire Maker mare. He's by Candy Ride. Candy Rides can do pretty much anything. And we know what Empire Maker did in the Belmont Stakes. So certainly think he's got a chance to win. He wasn't my pick. I don't know that I trust him to carry his speed 1.5 miles, and I don't know that I want to depend on Hot Rod Charlie not contesting the pace with Rock Your World.
I think everyone will be a little too forgiving of him and then bet him down a bit too much, and that might be a problem.
That could be. And that's something I honestly didn't even consider.
Maybe.
I felt kind of like 9-2 was about right. Because there are going to be a ton of people at Belmont Park on Saturday and betting from home that have no idea what the hell they're doing. And they're going to see that 75 speed figure in the Kentucky Derby and see that he finished 17th and have no idea why. And they're not going to read the comments or anything like that. So I think maybe this horse stays at that 9-2, and honestly, I think that's pretty fair. And you know how much I hate picking West Coast horses in any situation, especially at my home track. But Rock Your World, to me, Rosario's got to go, and he's going to try and slow the pace down. And if any of you watch New York racing, you know that New York is the land of no pace. The paces are dead all the time here. Every single day you can find a race where there should have been horses up near the lead, and one horse, could be the 4th or 5th fastest horse in the race, is up near the front or on the lead and wires the field into submission. It happens all the time. Why shouldn't it happen in this race either? I'm not picking him on top. I'm not picking him second because he's going to be too short, and I think Essential Quality is just better than him. But Rock Your World has an absolutely great pace scenario in here, and because he drew outside of Hot Rod Charlie, Rosario, who actually knows Belmont Park very well and has won 2 Belmont Stakes with very good rides, as much as I hate him, Rosario, because he's given very bad rides to some of my horses over the years, he has a choice. he can let Hot Rod Charlie go if he's really ambitious and goes too fast, or if he sees that nobody's doing anything, he could get him over to the fence on the lead, and then him is going to be the one that's going to try and wire the field into submission. Or he, I'm sorry, I misspoke there. He's got a bullet drill coming into this handily over Santa Anita. I don't think that the pedigree suggests anything other than he's good for this distance. I like the race in the Santa Anita Derby, the improvement he showed after the month off. He's going to get another full month off here from the Derby. Always a good angle to skip the Preakness coming into the Belmont. You could see my top 3 choices. In fact, all 4 of my choices are coming straight out of the Derby. And he's going to be my 3rd choice in this race. And to me, he's very, very dangerous. But just, I think Essential Quality is a little better. And 9-2 is just way too short in a field that I think is just not that good. Number 8, the final horse in the race. We close out the Pletcher train, which is 37.5% of this field, 3 out of 8. And the number 8 is Overtook, who's coming out of the Peter Pan. Sammy, what do you think of Mr. Overtook?
The only new shooter in this race. Only new shooter in this race. Oh, but speaking about your point about the Belmont, about how you don't think it's good, like, I kind of agree. I mean, I think it's good, but people are a little overrating this race a little too much, in my opinion. That's the problem, in my opinion. Like Andrew, what do you think would make this field, like, good? Like, really, in your opinion?
Horses that are faster. I just think the crop of 3-year-olds is not that good. This is not that bad of a sampling of the crop. I just think the crop itself is not very good.
I think it's solid. Anyways, we're getting distracted now. Overtook, I actually picked him in his last race, which was the Peter Pan. I don't know if you guys know, but he was actually hurt for a little bit. That's why he had something wrong with his leg, I believe. So that's why he was off for 3 months. And he ran solid into Peter Pan, but I feel like he just, like Jack likes to say, he's a Pletcher plotter. I remember he was $1 million, and he's good connection, good owners. But I could see him running the money, but I just don't really see him winning. I just don't think he's good enough to win first. And if you look at the back of his PPs, I mean, it's not really relevant anymore, but like, he lost to Known Agenda by 21 lengths. And then he lost to Risk Taking, and he lost. I just don't know if he's good enough. That's my problem with him.
Listen, I mentioned I was going to use this horse. Full disclosure, he on paper should not win the Belmont, and on paper probably should not run in the money in this race. But I'm doing the same thing that Andrew's doing in here. He's grabbing a long shot Pletcher. I'm grabbing the longer shot Pletcher in this race. I'm riding the Pletcher plotter angle in here just because I need to have that. I'm not picking him on top, as I already mentioned, but he is going to be my second choice in this race. So I have him running second in here just because you can't leave Pletcher out of the Belmont Stakes, and especially with this Belmont that is as light as it is on horses. And I think that the bottom 2 horses in Pletcher's entry are better than Francisco de Ina, and I like my percentages when I have 2 horses that are better than the one bottom horse in the race, which in my opinion is Francisco de Ina, and I like the possibility of one of those 2 horses running in the top 3, and I want to take the longest price Pletcher horse in this race. I'm also grasping at straws, and this is not really the reason I picked him, but he was coming a little bit toward the end of the Peter Pan, and you could maybe make the case that give him 1.5 miles, he comes and gets something in the money in that. In that race gets up to maybe finish second or possibly win, but in this race it would be, or in the Belmont it would be getting a second or third place finish in here. But purely taking him second just because he's going to be the longest price of the Pletcher horses, and I need to have Pletcher in there somewhere. Why not take the longest price in a race that I don't really know where else to go with underneath?
I'm going to lean more towards Andrew's angle and go with Bourbonic as my long shot, but you do you.
Yeah,
Perfectly fair. I just want the longest price.
And yeah, we all know that that's an angle that works all the time. So it's never a bad angle. Let's talk about Overtook from my perspective. Look, he is a Pletcher plotter. He's got pedigree for this race. Curlin, sire, and the dams by AP Indy. Everybody that has eyeballs can see that. This horse is the definition of slow. And I know Bourbonic is slow. Not saying that he isn't. But this horse is really slow. And I picked him in the Peter Pan because he was the longer of the two Pletcher horses. And I said after the race, literally out loud at my TV, none of these horses are winning the Belmont. That race came home in 150 and 3/5 over a racetrack that was playing considerably fast. That is, I know sometimes people don't care about final times, but I do. I'm a big final time person, and when you have a racetrack that was playing as quick as the one at Belmont on May the 8th, 150 and 3 going around a one-turn mile and an eighth is absolute garbage to me. And this horse didn't even win. Look, I totally respect Todd Pletcher. I respect that he's working out well. I am not letting this horse beat me in doubles because it's Pletcher. I'm going to play some safety doubles into and out of the Belmont Stakes along with my across the board on Bourbonic. So I'm going to play the 10th race into the 11th and then the 11th into the 12th. Whoever I like in the 12th, which obviously I don't think that race has even been drawn yet. And I am not letting Pletcher beat me in those double bets. He's my prototypical 5th choice in here, which I'm obviously not going to put on the screen. But I threw 3 horses out. I did not technically throw him out, but he's not part of the top 4. I just think he's very, very slow, but you have to respect Pletcher. That's all I have on him. Sold for $1 million. Obviously, they think something of him. Any other thoughts on Overtook?
Nope.
Okay, so it is now time for formal selections. Let's start with Sammy.
Rock Your World over Essential Quality over High Rod Charlie over Nona.
Nathan?
I think I'm gonna take a maybe not a risk, but I'm gonna be very I'm gonna try to being confident in my choices. Hot Rod Charlie first, Bourbonic second.
Jack?
I'll make it official now. I'm taking Essential Quality on top. Second, I have Overtook, and third, I have Hot Rod Charlie.
Okay, and I am going 1, 2, 7, 6 in here. That's Bourbonic, the price play on top, just because I don't want to take the favorite on top. Essential Quality should get a pretty good trip, and I think just is the best horse in this race. I'm just hoping maybe Bourbonic lucks out with kind of a Sir Winston-esque trip, and then he can get the 1.5 miles and come running late. The 7... why am I getting confused? 7, Rock Your World, third, because he's going to be out near the front, and he should be able to hold at least a little bit to keep in the money. And then 6, because I just think Known Agenda is probably... he is on paper the best of the Pletcher horses. And I don't really like anybody else particular in here. I've told you why I don't like Hot Rod Charlie. I've told you why I don't like the Francisco Deina. I've told you why I don't like Overtook that much, and I've told you why I don't like Rombauer. So 1, 2, 7, 6. I'm using 5 horses in the doubles, though. I'm using the 1, the 2, the 6, 7, and 8 in doubles into and out of the Belmont Stakes. To me, you have to include all the Pletchers, Essential Quality, duh. And then the speed, Rock Your World. So those are my plays, my main play in the Belmont itself. As I said, I'll probably go something like 5 across the board on Bourbonic. Anything else, guys, about this Belmont Stakes? Okay, well, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. You can, again, watch the Less Than Pleasing coverage on NBC. I think it starts at 3 o'clock. Full coverage of the day starts on FS2, the NYRA show. whatever channel you have that gets Fox Sports 2. Hopefully you have it. If not, just go online, go on your ADW, and save yourself all the grief, and just listen to John Imbriel's race calls and a few paddock reports. That's all I got, guys. That's all these fine people have. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Thank you for listening. Remember to pay your bills first, and have a great time betting, watching, and not getting drunk at the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.